Hi guys, welcome to Dark Side Shorts, and today we're doing a bit of a fun one. Nuclear armed dirigibles. So, how do you strap one of these to one of them to do this to your enemy without something like this happening and ruining your day? Well, in the 1980s, the US Department of Defense looked at that option. That option, along with many others which we will probably be covering in the future, was the December 1980 report on ICBM basing options, a summary of major studies to define a survivable basing concept for ICBMs. Essentially, how to put a few more legs on your nuclear triad, and making them work. Dirigibles was one of the things studied. The basic concept of a nuclear armed dirigible, carrying obviously ICBMs, came in two forms. One is the continuous air alert, the other, random move. In the continuous mode, much like the B-52 patrols of the Cold War, a certain percentage of the dirigibles would fly at low speeds from US bases over the Atlantic and Pacific in patrol areas and be ready to launch their missiles as soon as they got the word. Now, compared to B-52s, operating in a similar manner, the dirigibles would have even better endurance for their missions, and they can cruise probably over larger areas. In the random move mode, the dirigibles move their ICBMs between any number of widely spaced fixed launch sites. Both operating modes thus gain survivability by scattering your ICBM arsenal across a wide area. Three classes of carrier were examined, with payloads varying from one 47,000-pound containerized missile to three 80,000-pound containerized missiles. The random move carrier is the smallest of these dirigibles studied. It has a volume of approximately 6 million cubic feet, is powered by turboprops, has a cruising speed of approximately 30 knots, and with a maximum speed of up to 110 knots at altitudes of 10,000 feet. The containerized missile is contained in a detachable module for ground launch. So essentially, they'd fly around. When they got a launch order, they'd land, and the containerized launch module for the ICBM would deploy and then fire. It's obviously a complicated system, but in theory, it could work. Now, the continuous air alert carriers made up the other two types of dirigible carriers studied. They are 1,000 feet long, approximately 14 million cubic feet in volume, a gross weight of 800,000 pounds, and has similar operating characteristics and speed as the random move carrier. They could sustain 30 knots for a period of 3 weeks. So, better than the B-52 bomber, but not as good as a nuclear-armed submarine. Various means of air launching the ICBMs were looked into and studied, including parachute drops and basically ICBM launch tubes that the dirigible would eject the ICBM from. It would ignite and go on its merry way to cause hell. All of the dirigibles would be armed with MIRV armed ICBM, so multiple independent re-entry vehicles. The favoured type would have had 5 warheads in each ICBM, with 167 such dirigibles required, assuming you wanted to maintain a 2/3/60% ready alert rate for a strike. Now, the principal difficulty with dirigibles is they would be extremely easy to track compared to a submarine, and extremely easy to destroy compared to a submarine, and be far less manoeuvrable than even a lumbering B-52 bomber. Another difficulty is the technical risks. So, operational feasibility, for example, particularly with regards to safety and reliability. These boys are not going to do well in a hurricane or a major storm, and you don't want one of them doing a Hindenburg on you coming into land near New York, it's got ICBMs aboard, because that could cause all manner of problems in the short term and even in the long term. Now, in the report itself, once they did the evaluation, they came up with two major positive features of this system. The environmental impact. You're obviously not going to have to create fields of ICBM silos or particularly massive new air bases to run these things. You just need to put new equipment in existing air bases. And they're coastal operating bases, which would form part of the environmental impact, so they'd be limited to a very small part of the country. Now, the negative features, this is where it got long. We've touched on a few of them already. Their responsiveness to threats is debatable. They're easy to track and potentially take out with a preemptive strike, just with a conventional jet fighter or maybe a destroyer or a cruiser with anti-aircraft weapons. The public, when you think of dirigibles or zeppelins, you immediately, most of the time, either think of the Goodyear blimp or the Hindenburg. And you can guarantee what people are going to think of when they hear you want to put nuclear ICBMs onto one of those things, and it ain't going to be the Goodyear blimp. Now, the landing and takeoffs with nuclear weapons is obviously a potentially negative feature. Their operability in all weather conditions is also a potentially negative feature. A lot of zeppelins, dirigibles, balloons have been lost due to bad weather conditions. Now, based on that evaluation, it's not surprising that these weapons of war have never gone really far at that time. Now, there have been various attempts to bring back dirigibles in the military form, but as you can see, apart from a few very specialist cases, the negatives are just horrendous, especially when you'd be basing a portion of your ICBM arsenal aboard them. They were just far too easy to track to be taken forward as a serious consideration to form part of the triad. Now, there are other methods of basing in the report that are far more practical, and I'm hoping to go into a few of them, as well as a few more of the absolutely bizarre and crazy ones in the future. I hope you've liked today's episode. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And I do apologise about the relative lack of art with the episode. There just isn't that much available. So I hope you have a good day. See you again soon.